We thank you again for staying with us on the program this morning on ITV. Beautiful Monday morning. And now we go straight to the heart of our major discussion on the program today, looking at the state of the economy and insecurity in the country amidst projections for 2023, amidst the politicking for 2023. I have the singular honor and privilege to host this morning two of the finest civil society activists in this part of the world. I'd like to thank very especially the Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, Reverend David Ogolo. Reverend Ogolo, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sonny Duke.
We also have with us the Executive Director of Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change, Comrade Austin Osakwe. Comrade, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Okay, let me begin with you, Ogolo. The economy as it is today, from what's coming in, what is there in the public space, is in comatose, particularly against the background that the Nigerian economy is dependent on crude oil, and that makes the economy a monolithic economy. Where we are today, were there chances that we could have avoided it in the years past? Is there any way we could have avoided the state of affairs with the economy, or we are just being impacted on account of the fact that we also belong to the global world, the global economy, as it were?
Again, Sonny, thanks for this opportunity to also join with a very prominent voice like Austin Osakwe to have some input into these kind of conversations. First, we are where we are today because we work towards it. So you have opportunity to change your future by dreaming well, by asking the right question, and by behaving well. So for every decision you take as an individual, as a nation, you take responsibility for the consequence. So we are where we are today because of what we have worked towards. And unfortunately, the consequence is what you can see across the entire country today. The level of poverty in the country is alarming, and people are not very happy. And to worsen the situations, we are not even able to take care of some development issues that are affecting our people. But the irony of it all is that this country is blessed with oil, natural resources that would have helped us to grow the economy, and that would have impacted positively on the lives of everybody. But we choose otherwise. And even those few who has the resources now are not in peace. And if you pick up the radio, you pick up the newspaper, you're listening, what you hear is alarming. We are in a war, I can tell you. The rate of death associated, preventable death in this age is alarming. So are there future opportunity? Yes, there are future opportunity. And it's even more easier now that we have moved away from a system where natural resources doesn't play any role much for country growth. Countries like Switzerland, Japan, they don't have much natural resources, but they are into the service industry, and you can see what they have turned their economy to be today. And the same thing can also happen in Nigeria if we have the right leadership, taking the right decision, and putting the right policies in place. The absence of all those initiatives is where we are today. And so for my take is that the problem is the politics we have not got right. If there is no impunity, what it means is that if leaders are elected and they fail to deliver, and there is no system put in place to ensure that those leaders doesn't emerge again, we'll continue to face this kind of problem.
Okay. Comrade, let me get your perspectives on how we got here.
Thank you very much. Reverend Ogolo has laid a very comprehensive foundation. Our present tells our future.
Exactly.
But we look back at the past and use that to introspect and ask ourselves whether we have come the right way. In 1975, the Gowon administration set up the Volkswagen car assembly plant and the car manufacturing plant, one in Kaduna and the other in Lagos. One of them cost 8.6 million. The other one cost 11.2 million. Not dollars, but naira.
To set up the plants.
Yes. And there was a bubble around the country and across the African region that at last a giant has emerged from Africa. That's why we began to call Nigeria the giant of Africa. That was 1975. Today, we can't produce toothpick. Today, everything that we use, from dairy products to electronics to automobile, everything comes from outside the country. That's a country where we can boast to have some of the most vibrant human resource across the world. So, in line with Reverend Golo, it is the mismanagement of our resources in the past, the failure to plan for the future. When we began to announce to the world that our problem was not money, our problem was how to spend it in that Gowon era. We had the opportunity of setting up large steel industry as a foundation for manufacturing. We had the resources to set up petrochemical industries. The half-hearted attempt made in Alaja, Jaokuta, and all of those things, in Eleme and all of those things, were an opportunity for the elite to just fritter away our resources and fill their pockets for their generation and the generation yet unborn. So we need to understand that it is not God that is punishing us. We need to understand that the fault is not in our stars, but in us. Because those who fail to plan are actually planning to fail. And I'll give you an example. Reverend began the push into the civil society awareness, as far as I'm concerned, in the entire South-South, and perhaps among the first in Nigeria. It's easy to check. Go back 20 years. People didn't even understand what civil society meant. Now you have everybody wanting to be labeled an activist or a civil society or a human rights activist. The point I'm making is that if people like him did not provide the leadership, through research, through advocacy, through publication, through direct engagement, we will not deepen the process to that level. So the point I'm making is that we have leaders in industry, we have leaders in politics, we have leaders in civil society, we have leaders in the professions. It is the failure of these leaders to look ahead and plan beyond the place where they started that has brought us to where we are. It is not that the resources are not there, they are there. But you see, and I'll give you another, I hear people talking about agriculture and all of that. Agriculture is only relevant now for sustenance, for subsistence. America won't be talking about agriculture now. India is not talking about agriculture. It's not agriculture that set up the Silicon Valley. The world has moved on, and we are refusing to move on. What is the level of capacity building that we make available to our young people so that they can compete fairly with children in the international climb? And here, look, take the children here. Take them away for 6 months to Japan, to Germany, to the UK, to the United States, to China, to India, and let them go and see that the world left them behind 20 years ago. You cannot, the Naira is weak because it cannot compete with other currencies. And the reason it cannot compete is that you require Naira to buy that which Naira can buy. You require dollars to buy that which dollars can buy. So if those using dollars are producing so much in terms of services, in terms of manufactured products, in terms of movement of ideas, if you want the things they produce, you require the dollar to buy. Are you following what I'm saying? So the more you demand what they have, the higher the value of their currency, which you require in the first place to patronize them. On the reverse, if they want to come and buy cassava from you, they want to buy plantain from you, they want to buy crude oil from you, they will require your naira. But how much of you do you produce, and how much of it is demanded? So they are having to demand less of the naira because they are buying less from you because you don't produce. It's simple economics. So our naira will remain weak as long as we are not producing for the world to buy from us, in which case they demand our currency. So we are where we are, again, to recap. And I'm sure that as we get along this program, we begin to look at how much this has affected the nation and how it has almost completely wiped out hope. Look, go to the market in the morning. What you have bought for 10 naira, if you go back in the evening, it's no longer 10 naira, it has moved up. That's how bad it is. Look into the faces of people that you come across in the streets. There's emptiness. There's loss of hope. And then there's anger. Everybody seems to be angry. That's why when I drive on the road, I'm a bit careful. I don't argue with anybody. Because people are angry. You don't know what is pushing them. So this is where we are. As for what can we do and where are we going, like I said, as we get along, we'll begin to look at those.
All right, Reverend, I just want you to build on this. I remember in several interviews we've had here, you talked about the Dutch disease. So the chicken has come to roost now. That's what it is. Because I read this morning that another recession is looming. Yes. And I know some few months back, we're very happy and we sang to high heavens that we've come out of recession. And there have been instances where people try to raise this issue. And somehow it looks like the intent of the person raising the issue was misconstrued. The state governor recently talked about, money is being printed and all of that. And there was reaction, uproar across the country. Is it that, okay, the message is not a problem, but maybe the messenger is the problem? Let me get your perspectives on this.
Just to start again, this question is very interesting. When Obaseki said that the country was printing currency and the response of the federal government was very unfortunate. First, I think what Obaseki did was to give voice to issues that most people are aware of in the country. And I must, again, commend the governor for taking, and I know that the bullet he's been receiving is normal. And I'm happy the way he has also responded and tackled the issues, because first, if you know what you did and what you believe in, you don't care about the consequence. But what matters most, future history will remember you. So Obaseki have done very well by putting that in the public. But when the way our government responds to issues, when issues are raised, again defines the quality of governance and government and the characters in government. And Obaseki case is not an exception. If you remember, when the Transparency International released their corruption perception index, the way the government responds to those index, it gives me concern. And if you look at the quality of governance in the country, is going down. And there is a correlation between governance and human development. When you don't get the governance right, the quality of human development will be down. And if you see how Nigeria appears in the Human Development Index, it tells you things are going down. Look the health sector, look the education sector, and coronavirus have even umped the situation, have made the situation even more directly deadly for the country. So why I will continue to do this narrative from the perspective that things are not going right, I have decided to take another step. Like 30 years ago, when I told a young man that, precisely 25 years ago, I had an internet in my house. I was living with my uncles in Second Cemetery. Then Benin's, people were still going to post office to post letter. As a young man, I was in Ekoma. I got the first £20,000 as a funder from donors, Oxfam. And this money was brought cash to Benin Republic. And the then acting president of Benin Republic hosted me with few young people. I took some professors from Ekoma to Benin Republic. I'm talking about 20 years ago. And when we started using internet in the house, I still remember Ross Clinton was the firm people were still going to post office to post letter. Between 25 years ago, when we introduced this idea of civil activism, if you go to post office now, it's dead. Nobody goes to post office to post letter again. You can see how technology has improved.
Yeah.
And a young classmate of mine who used to use typewriter, I've asked him to bring a typewriter to our new hub we are trying to establish now. So you can see that within 2 decades or 3 decades, you can see how things have evolved.
Yeah.
Technology, innovation, entrepreneurship has evolved. Now, in all this, government plays a major role. Government plays a major role. The Silicon Valley that my colleague mentioned, if you look at it, private sectors are the driver, but government plays a major role. The quality of government is very important to have innovation, to have entrepreneurship. A young girl that you interviewed a while ago, her future, if she was to be taken now to stay in the US or in Sweden or in Canada, her progress compared to when she stays in Nigeria will not be the same. And if you look all the young men and women that are changing the world narrative, I'll just take one, Elon Musk. Elon Musk's mother took him from South Africa to Canada years back. And today Elon Musk is defining the green vehicle technology in the world. Yeah. And is one of the richest men today in the world.
Second.
So ecosystem is very important. And who turns around that ecosystem is government. So the quality of government is very important. And then who are the characters that are in government? Now, if you go to the people that are in government, let's come to zero so that we understand, because value is very important. Yeah. What people value, what is the purpose of life is very important. When you see government officials that are privileged to be either governor or senator, go to the kind of house they build. When a man build a story building as a security post, it tells you that the man didn't work for that money. And it takes less than 30, 40 years for a house to expire. If you go to the OGRA, for example, the house that those days people were seeing as the best house, today nobody will want to stay in those houses. The house I and Osakwe has built today, my children in 20, 30 years time will not want to be associated with that house. So why will I use my fortune to build a house in a house that in the next 20, 30 years will expire? So it is only our value system need to change. And then how government invests in innovation and entrepreneurship. And I take an example of it, what is happening in Edo State. Obaseki is investing in broadband expansion in Edo State. You know, when Oshomole was the governor of Edo State, there's what they call the Red Roof Revolution. But rather than calling Obaseki the wait and see governor, I would rather say the broadband revolution. You know, what Obaseki is doing across Benin is mind-boggling. It is the silicon in the making. You know, when people hear about Lagos State ecosystem is changing because of the economic growth that's happening there, what is behind it is the broadband, is the internet, access to the internet. Like, for example, the entire Upper Sakomba axis that doesn't have access to the internet. You can see what coronavirus has brought out very clearly, that there are two kind of people in this part of the world. The children that have access to internet access will be the one to rule in the future. But the children that doesn't have access to the internet, they will be caught behind, and they will be the driver for violence, for conflict, insecurity across the entire country. So what do we do? So government need to invest in broadband. The way you go to petrol station to buy fuel to fuel your car, that's what it means. For every home to have access to broadband, irrespective whether they are poor or rich. Because you can see what coronavirus have thrown up, that remote working, remote education is the future. And so, what can government put in broadband accessibility? And that's what they've seen in Edo State. And that's what will take us to the next level in terms of access. Because idea and knowledge has been democratized. It can easily be accessed now, very easily. But you need a government to create the enabling environment for people to access it. And that's where we should be going. So rather than criticizing the current model, because it looks as if the people that are in power are deaf, they don't want to listen. So let's create a new model. And the model that I prescribe to people, when I established Amnesh 30 years ago, I knew what was going to happen in 30 years' time. I knew that I was not going to put my future in the hands of people I know better than. And so I created the vehicle of ANEG. And today, ANEG I created 30 years ago is one of the most successful NGOs in the country today. Well-funded, we've done very well. But I am also getting tired. I want to do new things. And so doing new things is about entrepreneurship, about creating wealth, about innovation. How do we turn idea to a new product? That's what grows economy. It is no longer petrol. It is no longer those natural resources. It's idea that grows the economy. And if you also go, you can also visit the Edo State Innovation Center. They're doing a great work. Excellent young men are there. Now, you can see a young man like Mark Zuckerberg, who founded the Facebook. His wealth is richer than Nigeria 20 times and the entire continent as a whole. So it is not about natural resources again. It's not about petrol again. The entire money that Edo State government gets from January to December, one man designed a software, he gets it less than a few days. So what are we talking about? What kind of quality of education are we giving to our children? Not that kind of education where they tell our children that Mongo Park discovered River Niger. You know, that kind of education is very disorienting. We need a new education. We need a new thinking. It is not PhD any longer again. It's not about professorship again. What kind of idea you can translate to a product that can impact on people's life, that can build capacity of people's life to be able to take control of their own environment. That's the future.
Comrade, how do we change these narratives? Ogolo has succinctly, given some pathways towards achieving this, particularly with the parlor state of the economy. COVID-19 has not really helped issues, but even if there wasn't any COVID, I'm tempted to say we probably would have still found ourselves in this situation, because whether we like it or not, some people are still having access to the national cake and helping themselves as much as they can.
Thank you very much. The place to start is government. How government business is run. One thing that has become very apparent, exacerbated by the advent of COVID, is that we cannot now run government the way we have been running it. People have said that the classical definition of madness is a person or group of people insisting on doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. You are only going to further sink into the mire of underdevelopment. How do we run government differently? Number one, government is too fat the way it is right now. Make no mistake about it. The hue and cry about whether commissioners have been appointed or they have not been appointed, it's not about service delivery. It's about politicians getting impatient that having fought an election, the time to begin to recoup has come. Of course, you need to have a state executive council to manage things and all that. But in line with doing things differently, one of the biggest problems we have had is the disconnect between the political establishment and the civil service public service. Who are those that actually run the government? It's not the commissioner. It's the civil service. That's the superstructure. You only come to impose politicians on them at the level of policy and strategy development. So what needs to be done, therefore, is to ensure that before you bring in politicians, you have a civil service and public service, number one, that is trained, that will, through reforms, will bring about expedited action in the civil service in such a way that when a file gets to one person, that file should not remain overnight with that person, because that's what the person is being paid for. So if there is a memo that is still circulating within government for a whole week, that's a failure of governance. You need to change all of this, and it's called bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is not a negative word. It is the manner in which bureaucracy has been exploited that is negative. So that's number one. The second is that, how has the civil service been running? This idea of everything is on paper. So when you want to refer to something that happened 14 years ago in government, you go into one office. I'm sure you have gone into the various ministries. You go into one office that is dusty and all of that, and they are searching for file. And before the file comes out, you have spent more than you will get from the reason you came. All of that needs to change. So you now begin to deploy technology to do that which has largely been done at the level of paperwork. So you need to start with government. The second thing about government is that, look, leadership is not a walk in the park. It's also not a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon. For me, one of the roles of a political party around the world is the grooming of leaders for the future.
Exactly.
What has happened is that we are not grooming leaders. Young people are just roaming around. Some are pressing computer for immediate gain, a passing fancy of momentary pleasures. The money that you get from Yahoo, how sustainable is it? Point to one Yahoo person who migrated from pressing computer and becoming a big industrialist. It's not there. So you've got to have something sustainable, and it is government that drives that. The last one is that there must be a cooperation between the private sector and the public sector. Across the world, it is not government that creates jobs. The government, Edo State government now just recruited into the civil service and public sector, I think about 1,000 something. They are planning to do another 1,000. At most, what they can employ will be 2,000, 3,000. That's a drop in the ocean. What happens is that it's the private sector that creates jobs, but government provides an enabling environment. What Ugolo has referred to as the ecosystem that will energize the private sector. How do you do that? In Benin, we started talking about a modular refinery. We started talking about power plants, all right, Azura and all others. The moment you get power right, in Edo, for instance, Edo will leapfrog over other states, including the federal government. Because what that simply means is that the average young man who is a barber is able to run his business and pay tax to government. All the small and micro scale industry,
will be revived.
They will be revived, and they will now begin to operate at optimum. That's what you require. Get power right. Get the policies right. And for God's sake, whether they say they have printed this or they are not printed that, the people who are attacking the governor know by themselves that they are doing so to protect their paymasters, and then others are doing so because they want to, like the proverbial ostrich, bury their heads in the sand and pretend that everything is okay. Don't we know that the economy of this country is in a parlor state? Like I had cause to mention in one of my calls into the program. I said, look, we've passed through this before. Awolowo raised the flag and said, look, the country is going to hit the rock in the next few months if we don't engage in some level of restructuring of our economy. They said, don't bother. We have experts in the government. We know that a few months later,
It happened.
it happened.
The rest is history.
That's where we are again. So for me, it's this. And let me quickly touch on the social contract. For a long time, we sold the lie that we have enough money to take care of everybody. It's a lie. Government does not have the money.
Yeah. States and federal broke.
They don't have the money. It's a miracle that some states, including Edo, are able to pay salaries. But it's not going to continue like that. We need to revisit the social contract. What's the role of government? What's the role of the people? The lie that we told long ago, that oil money is there and the oil money can do everything. I trust Ugolo. He is a man of statistics. As we sit here, I can tell you how much oil is being produced, what Nigeria is getting from it. We are not talking of the one that is stolen beside the point, the ones that are given as figures. The social contract is this, sir, that the people come together and set up a government and give the government what to work with. The government promises to work for the people, but the government is going to use the resources that the people themselves put together and give to government, trusting that these people that we have put there will live above board, they will embrace probity, transparency, accountability, and fiscal discipline. The social contract, the heart of the social contract, therefore, is that everybody, adult, will take a little and put into that pot. It is called taxation. Then once you have put the money into that pot, you have the confidence to engage the few people that you have put there to manage it. And in that engagement, you ensure that money is being used for what it is to be used for. So if they are doing a road, the community should not fold their hands and say it doesn't concern us. We are protesting our roads are bad. At the point where these roads were being constructed, what did the community do to ensure that the roads were done to meet up with specifications?
Standard.
Does it surprise you that the roads that were done by Ogbemudia, the roads that were done at that time, they are still better than the roads that have been done in the past 10, 15, 20 years in this country? So there's a gradual but steady dilapidation, both of values and of content. So in revisiting the social contract, let me give you an example. Look at abandoned buildings all over the place. Gola made reference to people building a mansion because they are in government. There are abandoned buildings all over the place. You can't try it abroad. You can't try it in the US. You can't try it in Canada because you will be paying for it. So you have a land, you build, you have tenants, and government says, bring 10,000. And you say, no, we have oil. Spend the money from oil. We are destroying our future. So essentially, it is not the readiness to contribute to the till. I think we will do that whether we like it or not. Okay. Because if you have a government like the one we have in Edo State that says, look, if I see what is right, I will do it, irrespective of the criticism. I'm going to do it. So we know we will put in the till. What should be important to us, and this is where I think civil society should come in, is to ensure that we monitor government expenditure. We monitor contracts, procurement. And then we supervise contractors. We monitor them to ensure that if they give you 10 naira to work with, what you deliver is value for the 10 naira that you have been given. This is the future.
All right. So what's the future in your perspective and changing this narrative?
Well, the future is very clear, and I'm happy that I'm staying in Edo State, and we have to be very careful. Just to understand people to understand that the purpose of life is beyond fighting. There's opportunity for every individual to reflect, to say, I stayed in this world, what will I be remembered for? Either you are a politician, you are a pastor, whatever anything you are, we should try as much as possible to leave behind a better society for our children and for the future generation. In moving forward in that context, I just try to point out things that are working. You know, I think, like I said, this is not the best time to use our resources to lament. It's to be able to identify areas of possible improvement and possible areas of where we can move forward. Let me give you a classical example about the implication of Dutch disease. You know, the Dutch disease, resource cost phenomenon, is very dangerous for every society that have run into it. And Nigeria is a classical case where you suddenly run into oil wealth and your initial source of income, which is from agriculture, you abandoned it and moved on to oil industry. And the oil industry is a technical industry where they employ few people. It's even more dangerous at this point in time. As a matter of fact, the whole entire technical operation of Shell has now been moved to Holland. What you see in Nigeria is actually driven from Holland technologically. It's few the crumbs of work and job that is available here in Niger Delta. The real people that manage the oil industry are overseas. So the oil industry doesn't really help the economy. Agriculture employs more people than the oil sector. But unfortunately, the way we analyze our economy, we still lay emphasis about GDP ratios. But if you look at debt servicing, for example, in relation to our revenue, you will know we are in a very bad situation. The amount of money we use in debt servicing, and this as a result about bad spending. Because when you spend badly, you face the consequence in future. So what is the future? The future is what I see in Edo State. I give you an example. If you have been using the Edo State and the airport in Edo State, before Baseke came on board, once it is 5 o'clock, you can't fly into Benin. And you know what that means? It means that you need about 2 or 3 days or a week to plan to come to Benin to do a business and move out. And if It means that you are blackout of the economy of the country and in the world. You cannot, so you use 1 week to plan a journey to Edo State. So how do you do business in Edo State? So Obaseki intervened, provided support for infrastructure at the airport. Now you can fly into Benin in the night, flight can come in 6 o'clock and return back because of that added value. So people cannot come to Benin this morning and return back the following morning. So you see the transaction of business, it has reduced the cost. Instead of you staying a week in a hotel in Benin, you can stay just 1 day. So your cost of business has reduced. It has increased the ease of doing business in Edo State. That's one. That's the kind of thing government can do to create the enabling environment. Then the second one is about electricity. You know, when you go to whether it's the exclusive list or whatever anything, it's only the federal government that can provide power. That is a policy that is retrogressive. And it's as a result of this power, north, south, tribal, that relates to that. That don't create enabling environment. It doesn't create the opportunity for people to have access. And in any country where they don't have access to electricity, they cannot grow, they cannot develop. You don't need any magic to tell you. Obaseki came with their private sector plan, and that can turn Edo State economy around. That's where to go, and that's what we should continue to sustain. Then the other one is about the broadband revolution. Like I said, the way you go to petrol station to buy fuel, that's how it's going to be in the future. Any home that doesn't have access to internet access will be cut off from the knowledge of the future, and that's very dangerous for the society. And then finally, to see the sad implication, people from Edo State, because of the Dutch disease, they've been moving into Europe, America, Canada for the past 100 years. The amount of resources that have come from migrant grant to Edo State actually, Western Union is the highest in the continent. But billions of dollars that have come into Edo State have gone down the drain. The only thing you see in Benin is what? Beer parlor, hotel, lounge. No new thing. What it means is that you can look at is the quality of education, and then the quality of people who left Edo to abroad. What is their driver? Then let's compare them with Chinese. Let's compare them with Japanese. Let's compare them with India. When the Malaysians and Singaporeans left to America, they stole the technology. They returned back. And today, Indian economy is booming. Malaysian economy is booming. Singapore economy, Chinese economy is booming. Who are the? Is the migrant. Our migrant are left here to abroad. The only thing they can do, they return back to Edo, is to come and build a hotel. Is to come and build things. And unfortunately, the money return back. Yeah. So what has happened is that the quality of education, the quality of knowledge and innovation is scarce in Edo State. Let me give you an example of what we're trying to tell you, that innovation is not there. In a society where there is no innovation, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Just the Oba of Benin alone, the heritage around the Oba alone is a mind-boggling industry. But nobody's playing with it. The moat around Benin, nobody's playing with it. These are mind-boggling industry we can turn to become an nest and become a source of income to Edo State. So the future is, how do we begin to build on this infrastructure? How do government create this enabling environment? Government must invest in it, because an individual cannot invest and take it to the level. And then people can take an advantage of government investment to turn it to become a new product in Edo State. And that will be the future. And that will be the model.
As lofty as these that we've highlighted are, the greatest threat for most analysts is insecurity. Yeah. And then worsened by the fact that the level of response doesn't give hope. Just yesterday, Kaduna all of a sudden has now become a hotbed for kidnapping on a daily basis. I mean, church was attacked, several kidnapped, one person was killed. And then there is a certain guy who is a minister, and there's so much surrounding him. The president has come out to say, well, the man is a changed man, so let him be. I'd like you to distill all of this together as we engage the issue of insecurity and how it threatens the future of Nigeria.
It takes us back to where we're coming from. Security is big business. If we are not secure, if lives and property are not secure, all of this one we are talking about, the economy, about investment, about whatever it is a waste. It's an exercise in futility. Why do I say it takes us back to where we're coming from? What you do, I'm sure you have heard the expression saving for the rainy day. They say the best way to defend yourself is to prepare for war, which is offensive. So at what point do you buy drones? Is it when Boko Haram has hoisted flag in local governments that they are controlling? That's not when you buy drones. At the point where you have so much money, you see the need to project into the future and say, how do we secure this and build on it? One of the things we need to do is security. And in this wise, what do we require? Drones. Number two, when do you go for fighter jets? You know, we started talking of Tucano jet and all that after Boko Haram had overrun the entire Northeast. That's when we started talking of Tucano jets. For a country that has constantly made billions of dollars from the so-called crude oil, we didn't bother to invest in security. The flip side is that even the money put into security, how do you account for it? How is it spent? You know, some time ago, the UN had made $30 million available for safe schools. Let the federal government point to one school that is safer now because part of that money was put into it. The fact that bandits can openly go into schools now, shoot at random, and cut away students, the same people we say are our future, they cut them away. The ones they took in Kaduna, they killed 3 of them just to send a message. So the point I'm making is that one level of security is that government over time has failed to invest in the security architecture and by implication, security infrastructure. That's one. There's corruption in the system. But the biggest problem we have had with our security is that we have ethnicized and tribalized issues of security. When the Buhari government came into power, they came on the credentials that a former no-nonsense military man could take on these bandits and Boko Haram. And they did say so in their campaign slogans. However, we began to hear of body language. And I dare say that the body language of the man at the center today is not an incentive, it's a disincentive. And how is it, sir? Let's take an example with this establishment, ITV. The moment, and you see, you know, some time ago, recently, I had praised ITV for remaining objective through the political discourse, even when persons we know are close to the establishment are heavily involved in politics and politicking. They remain objective. But the moment the man at the top in ITV gives, he doesn't need to say it. He just uses his body language to give the impression that some persons, everything concerning them are to be shrouded in mystery. They are only to be celebrated. That's what we permeate downwards. The man at the center has given signals with his body language that there are certain parts of this country that are sacred cows. And that's wrong for us. You know, I have kept saying this. There is nothing wrong with the average Northerner or the average Southerner, the Easterner, the Westerner. We have all been together as Nigerians. Why are we now thinking that the man in Jigawa, the man in Zamfara, is the worst enemy of the man in Edo? It has nothing to do with that. It is the fact that politicians exploit ethnic and religious differences to further their own political nests. So I hear that, oh, let us separate. Let these ones go their way. Let that one go their way. And I say, into how many places are you going to divide? After you have, the north has gone, the south has gone. Who told you that even in the south? I do programs, sir. I'm sure you know. I hear even in Niger Delta, when I lead a Edo delegation to conferences, even within the Niger Delta here, they start telling you of core Niger Delta. And Edo is left out. So into how many places are you going to divide the country? It is not the division. It is the fact that we have not had a man at the center who sees Nigeria as his constituency and is willing to be fair, is willing to be just, and is willing to be dispassionate in handling issues. Finally, on security, sir, is that security is everybody's business. Look at Edo. At a time, I'm sure you were one of those considering how to take off, how to run away. Because on a daily basis, whether it was Ekmoma Road, Warri Road, you know, all the roads. What we had was kidnapping, killing. Top government officials were now victims. In fact, what people were now doing was to save money so that when kidnapping happens, you have money to pay. And then we started talking about community ownership. That debate was not left for professors. It wasn't left to the academia. It wasn't left to media people. Everybody just knew that something urgently needed to be done. And it dawned on us that we needed to go back to the community because everything is local. Whether it's crime, whether it's politics, whether it's business, everything is local. It starts from there. And so government engaged the vigilantes. Not just engaging them, ensure that the vigilantes stand from their communities. And so if you are in Abudu, young people there, take charge of your area. Nobody is coming from Abuja to come and do it for you. If you are in Eho, do the same thing. I traveled recently outside Benin to one of the local governments in Edo North, and I was pleasantly surprised. I only saw police checkpoints, and that's in the city this way, and they were doing the normal thing that they do. But every stage, it was vigilante group. And there was no unruliness. Of course, there have been complaints about how unruly some are.
Some of them can be, yeah.
The truth of the matter is that every system
has its own imperfections.
Yes, now, because to cure a poison, you require a poison. And to make omelette, you require breaking of eggs. But what happens is that we need to monitor the process so that they do not degenerate. And that's the role of government and non-state actors. So for me, we need to take security as a serious business because it is the foundation upon which all of this prosperity that we are desiring will be built.
Reverend Golo, there have been serious concerns about the approach to the security infractions that we've seen. In the northeast, northwest, you talk about Boko Haram, you talk about bandits. In the southeast, you talk about the Eastern Security Network, IPOB, and the rest of them. I saw the celebration from security agents about the attack on Eastern Security Network commander. And then, in that same vein, you're wondering, why are the bandits and the Boko Haram militants so difficult to bring down like it has happened in the southeast? Are you concerned about this semi-dichotomy in the approach to these security issues?
First, the insecurity we are seeing in the country has direct relationship to the kind of governance system we have in the country. And the driver for the insecurity, obviously, is the kind of politics that we play in the country. If you look very clearly, there is always a correlation between the kind of insecurity you see in any particular region or state with the character of people who runs the state. I take an example again from Edo State. For example, the governor of Edo State is Obaseki. And from Obaseki's outlook and history, you know, he doesn't have time for working with, will I say the Agberus or hoodlums. So you can see his governance system. So when you go to the government house, you can see the quality of ambience. So you can see that permeates across. That's what Comrade Osakwe was talking about. Then, so the leadership plays a major role about what we see. And you can see those days, just building in Benin, the combination of the government and the traditional ruler, the Oba of Benin, were able to stop Deve. And that was building a kind of force of young men and women who were turning themselves like overlord. Even for you to seek a borehole in your house, you pay for it. And that was building a different type of kind of insecurity in the state and driving our development. But you can see because of the combination of the forces between the government and the Oba of Benin, they end that. That's what governance is all about. Solution. Problem identified, you provide solution. So the insecurity we have seen in the country is a template for governance. The political leadership in the country uses violence to continue to remain in power. If you remember, when the Niger Delta, when Jonathan was in power, you had some forces in the Niger Delta. They were connected to the power. But today they are not, they don't have person in Aso Rock. Where are they today? If you remember Anini And he was able to be effective in Edo because he had a connection with a police officer who was insider, who was providing insider information. So Boko Haram is in existence because it's a template for ruling. And if you see the same template used for the Niger Delta struggle, it's the same template that has been exported to the north. You don't need to have two heads to understand this correlation. Boko Haram cannot operate in the country without support from the internal government system. I say it because you have, do you know that in this country there's no local government you don't have SSS? No crime can survive in Benin more than a month without SS picking on where the crime is coming from. Are you saying that DSS is not aware what is happening in the country? If it's not aware, if I were the president, I would dismiss, I would sack the leadership of SS. So the SS are producing report to the president every day. The governor, for example, Obaseki, gets security report every day about Edo State. But when the power behind the insecurity are connected to the political leadership, nothing's happened. Can Agbero operate in Benin now? No, can Agbero operate in Benin? He cannot operate in Benin because they don't have any network with the political leadership in Edo State. Can anybody just rise up from any community now and be collecting deve? So, Boko Haram has a political network with the power system. And it's also another source of generating revenue for political holders. You know how much that is going for security vote. You know how much they are spending for the military. You know how many money that is supposed to be going to education and health is going in the name of fighting Boko Haram. But this money is going to private pocket. And we have found out from research that those who head all the security agency have mansions and buildings in Dubai. So you can see the close relationship about the wealth of those who control these institutions. Sahara Reporter has produced enough report. One of the biggest researchers in the world have used software to uncover the wealth of these people. But no action from above. ESCC is not able to do anything. But who are they picking on? The Yahoo boys. The small boys in town. The big boys in towns are operating free hands. Their assets are visible. The things they are doing are visible. So this is the reality we have. And what it means is that Nigerians appear in the lower rung of the impunity index. When you live in a country where people commit crime, nothing happened to them, you don't expect magic to happen.
Okay, now let's quickly cap this up. In the midst of this, the politicking of 2023 is taking center stage. Maybe, in a sense, competing with all these issues. What does this mean for you?
I think it's not just competing, it's overshadowing. You know, there is a popular statement that statesmen think of the next generation, but politicians think of the next election. A lot of the things you are seeing are actually rehearsals for 2023. Unfortunately, the political establishment feels that they have an oasis, a safe haven where they cannot be touched. So all they do is politicking. But I hope they see that that statement is naive. Because we had reports of a governor in one of the southeast states whose house was set ablaze.
200 million naira Rolls Royce, completely destroyed.
So one of the things that came out of that, we now know that there are Rolls Royce that are valued at 200 million naira in some in some government houses in this country. So, but on a more serious note, it is that we are spending so much on elections. We are spending so much on politics and politicking. I have been hearing stories that INEC is finalizing arrangements for electronic voting. That will be my happiest day, because it's one thing we have kept pushing and pushing. Number one is that it will bring some semblance of sanity into politicking. Then we can have something fairly close to the reality when results are announced, just like we had it here. And then, of course, finally, it will take attention away from, look, you know, very soon now, governments across the country will not be doing any other thing. led by the federal government. Everything you have will now be pumped into politics and politicking. And politicians are warming up. But that appears to be the easiest way to make billions in this country. My advice is to bring it again back to the people. Is to bring it again back to the people. The people need to watch politicians. The people need to monitor politicians.
Okay, we'll just take a short break. The show will continue in a moment. Don't go away. All right, thank you again for staying with us. Just on the verge of concluding our conversations. In all that we've talked about today, looking at the politicking for 2023, that seems to be dwarfing all of these economic and insecurity challenges that we have in the country right now. And that seems to be a huge concern for a lot of people, beginning with our panelists here in the studio. Comrade, just quickly establish the point before we call it a wrap.
The politicking takes attention away from the very basic issues of development.
Okay.
And then a lot of the money, it's difficult to trace political money in this country. The money that goes into campaigns, where does it come from? Do they take it from the coffers of government? Or there are individuals who give it to politicians so that they can get it back when they get into power and all of that. So because we are not able to trace political money, our fear when politics is, the politics is heated up like this through politics and politicking, is that a lot of the money that is meant for development will find its way into the process of politicking. The second is that, again, it takes attention away from the core issues of security and economy.
Okay.
For me, and I think we'll be proven right as we get along, as the movement towards 2023 continues and increases in tempo, we are going to have largely an abandonment of the fight to restore the economy and then the fight against insecurity. Because the correlation is clear. Number one, there is no concentration on the fight because attention is divided. Two is that it narrows the resources available to attend to the economy and insecurity. However, we can't do without succession in governance. I think it's a matter for the future that we need to look at where the money for politics comes from, how it is spent, what quantum is allowed to be spent, and then an evaluation of what is spent and how it is spent. Until we get there, it's a distraction.
Okay, let me come to Ogolo. You said a while ago there is a nexus between the insecurity, for example, Boko Haram, banditry, and the corridors of power, and that seems to be the reason why it's festering. There is no evidence to that fact. There's no evidence to that fact.
Yes. There's what they call theory. You know, for you to carry out a research, you have to base your research based on some level of hypothesis.
Okay.
And then, so I said, and I started with Anini. You know, we're using history.
Yes.
To judge what happens today,
okay,
and to profile solution for the future. Our conversation here today is to help the current government. Is to help the government to address issues that we feel that are obstacle to development. Our conversation is to ensure that government listen and then hear our own side, give voice to issues. It's up to the government to take some lessons from it. For instance, I have said here from my analysis that the SS are performing their duty excellently. You know, the police are doing their best, but you require political leadership to make things happen. If the SS carry out a research and they carry out a report and they produce it to the president and nothing happened, will you blame the SS? You can't blame the SS.
Well, there's no evidence that
no, that's what I'm saying.
Presented.
So that, no, I have the evidence. The evidence I have is that there is. I used to be in Igobazua. I grew up in Igobazua. In Igobazua those days, when they say governor is visiting Igobazua, We used to mobilize the old women and old mama. I'm always surprised how SS used to know our plans. Before we wake up with our old women and dad, the SS are already at my mother's doorstep. That we heard that your son is mobilizing people. And they will now invite us and say, what is your problem? We'll tell them that there is no water. Then it was military regime. So what am I trying to tell you is that the SS is very efficient. I can tell you.
But they can do more.
So what I'm saying is that there's a political gap in translating the research, the intelligence into action. And I've provided an example that Anini was a very famous armed robber in Benin. The reason why Anini lasted that long was because he had a network inside the police. So each time the police is trying to carry out, do you need any other evidence on this? Were you not here?
Okay.
So the time police want to carry out operation, they leak those information to Anini gangs.
All right. All right.
And so what I'm saying is that the insecurity in the country, it cannot be unconnected with the fact that these people have some political. Otherwise, why will Boko Haram have so much power to operate for more than 3 years?
Okay, but I'm hoping that in the days to come, with efforts being made and new equipment being purchased by the government, we'll be able to put all of these things into check and bring them to the barest minimum. I want to say big thanks to our partners, Reverend Ogolo. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And Comrade Austin Osakwe, thank you for coming on the program.